I should have known something was off the moment I got transferred to Precinct 17. You ever walk into a room and feel like the walls are listening? Like everyone knows a secret you don't? That was my first day. I'd been a cop for 11 years, long enough to spot tension even when people pretend everything's fine. And let me tell you, the smiles at that station were too tight, the jokes too forced. Something was hiding beneath all that brotherhood banter. By the way, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? I love seeing where all of you were tuning in from. At first, I chalked it up to nerves. New guy, new station. But it didn't take long before the gut feeling became impossible to ignore. My captain, Captain Ray Tolland, was the kind of guy that other cops either adored or feared. Not much in between. He was charismatic, loud, always with a hand on your back and a story in his pocket. The kind of guy who hosted barbecues at his lake house and made you feel like you owed him just for being invited. But beneath that good old boy charm was something colder. It was in the way his eyes followed people when they didn't know they were being watched. The way his smile never quite reached those eyes. And the way everyone jumped when he walked into a room. I didn't think much of it until I started noticing inconsistencies in our evidence logs. Small things at first. A seized Glock that vanished after a bust, a package of fentanyl logged into the system but never making it to the evidence room. When I brought it up to the sergeant, he told me I must have misread the entries. "Relax, Mac," he said. "You're new. These things happen." But I don't mess up. Not on paperwork. I started making copies of everything. Quietly, I kept a separate notebook in my locker, logging every item I saw come in and out of our station. And then I started digging into older files. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. There were reports of raids where kilos of drugs were supposedly incinerated, but the paperwork didn't match the inventory logs. Property seized from dealers was lost in transit. Confidential informants' names were redacted in ways that didn't follow protocol. Something was very, very wrong. Still, I needed proof. Real proof. So I started shadowing one of the detectives, Drew, a guy who was always driving the newer cruiser and wearing a Rolex that didn't match his paycheck. One night, I followed him after he clocked out. He drove out to the docks. Now, I knew what I was doing was risky. Following a fellow cop without a warrant to back up could cost me my badge, or worse. But curiosity had turned into obsession. I parked a few blocks down and used my phone to film what I saw. Drew met with a man I later identified as Ramon Tellis, mid-level distributor with ties to an East Coast cartel. They exchanged what looked like a duffel bag for a brown envelope. I took the footage home, backed it up 3 times, and made copies for my cousin, who's a lawyer, just in case anything happened to me. When I showed my captain the next day, pretending it was something I accidentally recorded, he froze. Not angry, not surprised, just disappointed. "Mac," he said, shutting his office door behind us, "you need to understand how things work around here." I kept the camera rolling in my pocket. He leaned in close. "We keep the streets clean our way. That means sometimes we divert product before it gets back into circulation. Sell it off to fund our CI network, buy intel, grease the right palms. It's not personal, it's just business." I was stunned. This wasn't just some dirty cop looking the other way. My captain was running a full-blown criminal operation out of our precinct. And the worst part, he believed he was the hero of the story. I told him I needed time to think. I left his office, drove straight home, and contacted Internal Affairs. I uploaded every document, every video, every note I'd collected. I knew going through IA was dangerous. Half the department might be compromised. So I also went to the press anonymously. That was the day I stopped sleeping. The next morning, Drew was gone. Transferred, they said. Just like that. A guy with 10 years on the force. Poof. Vanished. My captain started sending other officers to check in on me at home. Casual visits. But their eyes were too sharp, their smiles too thin. I was being watched. I went full-on paranoid. Switched cars, stayed with friends, encrypted my devices. I kept pressing IA, but they moved slow. Said they couldn't act without solid testimony.
Eventually, I wore a wire and got my captain to confess. Well, not directly, but enough to imply he was managing a redistribution system. That recording, combined with the financial records I'd uncovered showing fake shell companies tied to his family, was enough to finally launch an investigation. But that wasn't the end, not by a long shot. The captain caught wind of the investigation before they could formally arrest him. One night I came home and found my apartment door ajar. My heart nearly stopped. I walked in, gun drawn, only to find my place ransacked. Nothing taken, just a message scratched in the fridge with a knife. "You should have kept your mouth shut." I was put on leave and sent to protective housing while they completed the bust. They eventually raided his lake house and found enough drugs, cash, and weapons to implicate the entire scheme. Over a dozen officers were arrested. 2 committed suicide before the charges landed. It rocked the department. And me? I was hailed a whistleblower in the media, a hero. But I lost friends, brothers in blue I used to eat with and ride beside. Some of them genuinely didn't know what was going on. Others were just mad I aired our dirty laundry. Either way, I wasn't welcome anymore. You know what the kicker is? After everything, after the death threats, the sleepless nights, the betrayal, I found out that this whole operation had been going on since I was even in the academy. My brother, who died in a suspicious carjacking in 2006, had once reported missing evidence from a different precinct, the same one Captain Tolland used to run. I dug deeper, found out that my brother had filed a complaint just weeks before his death. Internal Affairs lost the report. That's when it hit me. I hadn't just taken down a corrupt captain. I'd avenged my brother's murder. The man I once looked up to, the one who toasted beers with me at the annual precinct picnic, had likely ordered my brother's death to keep his dirty empire afloat. And he almost got away with it. Almost. So yeah, I still wear the badge. But I don't walk into precincts the same way. I don't smile the same. I don't trust the same. Because once you see behind the curtain, you can never go back. What would you have done if I were me? Tell me in the comments below.